It is 3.5 years since COVID-19 pandemic hit us. I'm sure none of us will forget how it paralyzed our lives for more than 2 years. The very young and the very old suffered the most. Thanks to the rapid introduction of the various vaccines around the world, life today appears to have returned to near normal. Today, we rarely see anyone wearing a mask or taking any precaution against the infection. Yet, the papers regularly tell us that COVID-19 is very much alive. Harvard School of Public Health believes that society has moved into a stage where the pandemic appears for most of us, if not over, certainly quiet. But they also inform us that COVID still remains a threat. Today, I may be the only person walking around in a shop with a mask on. I'm not ashamed as I've got used to it. In fact, I now feel apprehensive and start to panic if I occasionally forget to wear a mask. Professor Ravi will today update us about the infection. Prof Ravi needs no introduction. He has addressed us twice in the past. As most of us know, he was the senior professor and head of the Department of Virology at NIMHANS in Bangalore. He had served on many task force and scientific advisory committees. After retirement, he was appointed as co-chairman of Vaccine Committee, Ministry of Science and Technology in India. He was involved with research and projects connected with the development of vaccines at various centers. He was then appointed as head of research and development at Tata Medical and Diagnostic Center, which I'm told is now in Bangalore. He's still very active and extremely busy with his research. At the end of his talk, we will open the session for questions and discussions, as I'm sure many of you will have a question for him. In the meantime, you're welcome to post your questions and comments in the chat box. Without wasting any more time, let me ask Prof Ravi to address our group. You should unmute, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Badrinath, and it's a great privilege and pleasure to be back with the Madras Red Fort group. I have very fond memories of Madras Medical College, and I have a very deep connection with your batch, which I will come to shortly. I will just share the screen. Please tell me when it is visible. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me go full screen. Is it full screen, sir?
Yeah, it is, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Badrinath reached out to me and asked whether I could give a small update. So what I am going to do is, first of all, my connection with your batch is Professor Chandramukhi, who was your classmate, and I'm sure many of you know today is her birthday. Just spoke to her and wished her and asked her whether she'll be joining. She said no, but she is my connection to your batch. I owe my career to her because she and Professor Narayan Reddy, her husband, were my godparents and mentors at NIMHANS. When I joined in 85 January, I had no track record, proven track record, to say I'm a virologist other than working in JIPMER for 2 years. But the amount of encouragement and support they gave me was phenomenal, and I owe it to them for whatever little I could do in my career in virology. So let me start by wishing her a very, very happy birthday. What I'll do in the next 20 minutes is going to be very short. I know there's a CSK match. You know all of it. The last 3 or 4 questions are what is important. Is the pandemic over? Do we require boosters? I think these are questions that people have been reaching out to me. Those are important. And of course, I will also tell you what the picture overall looks like globally and in India. At the cost of being repetitive, let me tell you that SARS-CoV-2, as it was called when it was discovered, severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, 3.5 years back, as Dr. Badri said, was a new virus. The ancestor of this virus was the SARS-CoV-1, which caused a global outbreak, but not to the extent that this virus caused. It is an RNA virus. It is spherical in shape, about 100 to 120 nanometers, and it has a single piece of RNA. And in our microbiology language, we say it's a positive standard RNA, meaning if you introduce the RNA into a cell, you inject it, it will immediately go into translation. We all know it functions as an mRNA. We all know that proteins are made from mRNA, and this is a single large open reading frame, and it codes for all the proteins. It codes for many proteins, structural and non-structural proteins. Structural means those proteins that go into the final assembly, like in this cartoon, I can say it's the spike protein, or it's the matrix, or it's the capsid protein, and so on. But there are also other proteins that are made when the virus is multiplying, which are called non-structural proteins. And they have different roles to play, including, determining what type of response the virus will elicit in the host. The most important protein of the virus is on the surface, that is jutting out. That is, it has a stem and it has a head. And this is the spike protein. All the biological properties of the virus are endowed in the spike protein, and that's a 3D structure of the spike protein. This protein binds to ACE2 receptors in the human cells. That is the specific receptor for the virus. And these virus receptor interactions are like lock and key. Now, I'm telling a bit of basic science because it has a bearing on what I'm going to talk. And the genome is about 30,000 nucleotides. As I said, it's a single open reading frame. It codes for the different proteins, and spike protein is the most important protein. We all know that between DNA viruses and RNA viruses, there's one fundamental difference. DNA viruses have a distinct advantage of integrating into human genome and remaining latent and getting reactivated. Classic example is the chickenpox virus. It is present in all our bodies. It's present in the dorsal ganglia. Whenever there is stress or when the conditions are favorable, it reactivates and produces herpes zoster. The same is true of herpes simplex, which resides in the trigeminal ganglion and causes cold sores at the mucocutaneous junction of the lip, in the angle of the lip. RNA viruses, on the other hand, they are endowed with the property of mutation. Now, so variation is the norm in RNA viruses, and we have seen that in SARS-CoV-2. This was something we did not know 3 years back. In May 2000, we were all grappling to find out what this virus is, how it infects humans, what will it produce, how does it multiply, does it mutate, and so on. So understanding variants and how they work is something that we have gained a lot of expertise in the last 2.5 years. And that's been a very learning experience for scientists and virologists like me. So why do variations occur? When RNA copies itself, it makes mistakes. Why does it make mistake? Because the enzyme that copies RNA is called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. And that has poor proofreading ability in editor's language. When it copies something, it makes mistakes. You can take it equivalent to a spelling mistake. So the daughter RNA that is produced is different from the mother RNA. Now, these mutations will start accumulating. When these mutations start accumulating, they can either change the behavior of the virus or they may be non-functional. Now, if the mutation occurs in the head of the spike protein, because that is the protein that attaches to human cells, then it can affect binding and it has a great impact on infectivity. Why does the virus also mutate? There is immune pressure. The body is making antibodies. And where to what protein it makes? Obviously to the surface protein. The most prominent is spike protein. Once the body starts making antibodies that neutralize the spike protein, under immune pressure, the virus also mutates. So there are two reasons for viruses mutating, and that holds good for SARS-CoV-2 also. Now, if you look at the original SARS-CoV virus from Wuhan, that spread globally for 2-3 months. And the first mutation occurred in the spike protein somewhere in the end of February. And by April, this mutant virus took over and replaced the parent virus. Now, I call this, and many of us call it, the grandmother mutation. And what is this mutation? At position number 614 amino acid, it changed from aspartic acid to glycine. D is an abbreviation for aspartic acid, and G is an abbreviation for glycine. So this single amino acid change gave tremendous advantage to the virus that its infectivity became more. And it took over and replaced entire globe wherever it was circulating. This was the grandmother mutation. So even today, all SARS-CoV virus, all of them have the grandmother mutation. And subsequently, the virus has been mutating, and you all know that WHO classifies the mutants into 3 categories: variant of interest, variant of concern, and variant of consequence. Variant of interest means it causes a local outburst and a cluster, but does not sustain long enough to take over the existing strain and spread globally. There have been many examples of that. All of them are Greek alphabets because the WHO decided the technical name of A, B, B.1.1, B.1 is very confusing. So they gave Greek alphabets. There have been 5 variants of concern. Alpha virus that emerged, was detected in the UK in December 2020. Beta and gamma in early 2021. Delta, we all know, caused a huge problem globally, and in India, it killed thousands of people. And then, of course, towards the end of 2021, the current variant of concern that is circulating, Omicron. And after that, thank God, we have not had a variant of concern. When you get a variant of concern, the population is not exposed to those fine changes on the spike protein. So they are susceptible to infection. But serious disease will not manifest because your immune system is trained to handle the virus. Remember, vaccines are designed for all diseases, not to prevent infection, but to prevent disease. Asking a vaccine to prevent infection is a very tall order, and we in technical terms call it sterilizing immunity. We don't have vaccines that give sterilizing immunity for COVID, let alone COVID, any other disease as well. So to expect vaccines will prevent us from getting infection is foolhardy. We should accept that the COVID vaccines are doing their duty. Once you're fully vaccinated with 2 doses plus a booster, you will not have serious disease, but you can get infection and you can have mild disease. Now that is the way forward for all of us. Okay, why do variants emerge? I already told you it can make mistakes while copying, and also there is immunological pressure. Just to give you an example, a visual example, the top left panel shows Delta and Omicron. Forget the complicated structure. Look at the red spots. The red spots are mutations. Delta had about a dozen mutations, whereas Omicron had 51 mutations, and it's still gaining mutations. Now, these mutations in the bottom left panel, you can see, make the virus a better fit for the receptor. So the virus can easily latch on and easily get into cells. That is why it is causing wave after wave after wave infection. The second implication of mutations is what is in the bottom right panel, where when Delta was detected, we immediately came up with making monoclonal antibodies, which were given as passive therapy and which prevented deaths. But unfortunately, those monoclonal antibodies did not work against Omicron because the virus had mutated further. Now, these are directed to spike protein. So as mutations occur, we keep learning on how to tackle these mutations. Mutations produce a number of consequences. They can be biological, they can be epidemiological, and they can affect diagnosis. The first and foremost advantage to the virus in a mutation, and those mutations that change the structure of the virus alone will survive, others will fall off. They don't have any advantage. This is the theory of fittest of the survival of the fittest. So those that fit better to the receptor, they will stay on. The others will not have an ability to multiply, though they will die down. So they spread very quickly. And as the population in the last 2 years has started getting immunity, immunity is 2 forms, hybrid immunity. One is natural infection acquired, the other is vaccine induced. Today, 90% of the globe, everybody has experienced COVID, as the immune system has seen COVID either through vaccination or through natural infection. So because we have memory, when we get repeated infections, we are able to handle new infections in a much more mature way. Our immune system is able to eliminate it before it produces serious disease. If the diagnostic tests are detecting genes that are mutated, then they may come negative. But fortunately, almost all viral PCR tests today do not target mutating region, they target stable regions. So that is not much of a problem. Remember, when we made the first set of vaccines, we made it against the parent Wuhan strain or the one with the grandmother mutation. Very rapidly, the virus is mutated. Now you have second generation vaccines or the newer vaccines, and I will talk to them later. This on the right shows you a graph on the speed of which it can spread. As you can see, alpha had an advantage over the Wuhan virus. Beta and gamma had some advantage, but look at the curve for Omicron, it is going vertical. And in a very short time, it spread across the entire globe. That is because of its ability to bind better to receptor. Coming to current global data. This is from the WHO website. Totally, we have had 765 million COVID cases reported to WHO. It must have been much, much more. But these are what the records are. And about 6.9 million have died. As you can see, the major brunt of death was in the first 1.5 years up to May or March 2021 or May 2021. After that, vaccines came in the beginning of January 2021 in the West and about February, March to India. So once vaccination was introduced, deaths came down. Vaccines prevent death. And you can see in terms of the scale, y-axis is very, very different for the two graphs. For the upper graph, which is infections, it's in millions, whereas in the lower graph, it's in 100,000. So in December 2021, when Omicron came, you saw a huge spurt globally, and that is still continuing. Now, is it still a problem? I think we all know, you've seen the news, it is very big news, and that news was that WHO on May 5th, the Director General officially declared that the pandemic is over. It ceases to be a disease of public health international concern. And this is because the data clearly shows in the last 3 months to 6 months, especially over a year, number of infections are coming down across the globe, across nations. There are newer infections reported in spurts, but these are because of mutations in the virus, but mortality and hospitalization has come down in countries that have a decent health infrastructure and where vaccination coverage has been good. Now, does that mean COVID is not a problem? The answer is no. COVID has moved away from a pandemic, an epidemic, to an endemic situation. Endemic means continuously there will be cases throughout the year, and there will be spurts whenever a new mutant emerges. It will cause infection and it will die down. But deaths will not be a problem. Hospitalizations will not be a problem. When I say will not be a problem, remember, those who are vaccinated are naive, they are vulnerable, they will get serious disease and they'll have a higher chance of mortality. Similarly, those who are immunocompromised, due to a disease or because of their age, then they can manifest serious disease. And we all fall, including me, we all fall in the age where our immune system is not optimal. Immune system is aging. So we are, generally speaking, to an youngster who is vaccinated, we are at a slightly higher risk of getting admission possible. I'm not saying it will happen, but you should keep that in mind. Just like in influenza, it is going to be like influenza. There will be virus changing, vaccines coming out, and it's up to people to take vaccine or not. I come to the recommendations on vaccines. There is no clear-cut recommendations. There is no mandate for people to take newer COVID vaccines, but it is recommended for people who are above 65. So this is Indian data. Then India also had waves, 3 waves prominently. The first one during lockdown, the Delta wave, which killed a large number of people, and then the Omicron wave, which caused infection but not. And then middle of last year we had, and very small blip we had in the beginning of this year in March, April, and that also died down. All this is because the virus was mutating and variants were emerging. The way forward globally is to continue genomic surveillance, sequence the genome, and keep a track. And India has got a fairly decent genomics consortium, and I happen to be on this consortium as one of the key members from Ministry of Health, Government of India. Now, this consortium has been doing well. There's now 28 labs, 10 of them are very active. And this is a variant graph that I'm showing you. On the left, you see the lineage frequency in terms of percentage. On the x-axis, you see the various lineages. I don't want to labor you with what it is. You see the last towards the right extreme, you see a pink one that caused the surge in the last 4 or 5 months. And this is a sub-lineage of Omicron. What do you mean by sublineage? Omicron itself is classified as BA1, BA2, BA3, BA4, BA5. Now, when the virus mutations start accumulating newer mutations, it can cause more infections. The current surge in India was caused by XBB 1.16 and 1.6, and it produced only mild disease in those who were vaccinated, so it was not a problem at all for all of us. In the last year or so, vaccine companies have been updating vaccines. What is an updated vaccine? The so-called updated vaccines are designed to protect against Omicron, because Omicron was a different variant. I showed you a graphic, Delta versus Omicron, a dozen mutations versus 51 mutations. So those who are vaccinated, many of them, including me, and I'm sure many of you in this call also must have experienced what is known as a breakthrough infection. You got COVID after taking your requisite doses. You got the infection. That is because the antibodies produced against the parent virus or the vaccine strain that was used in 2021 was not able to protect against Omicron. So now mRNA vaccine technologies, especially Pfizer and Moderna, give you the advantage of quickly taking the RNA out, scissoring it, and introducing the Omicron mutations and making a vaccine quickly. So mRNA vaccines are available as updated vaccines, and some of the other vaccines also are being updated. The Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna are the ones that are in the forefront as far as mRNA vaccines go, and they've been available right from September 2nd, 2022 to up to March 17th. Updated vaccine was released even for children by the Pfizer company. So updated vaccines are now available. Should we take them? Is there a recommendation for a booster? WHO says it is recommended. CDC has come forward and very clearly said people aged 65 years and older may get one additional dose of COVID-19 vaccine 4 months or after, because vaccine, if you give an mRNA vaccine, it is active and produces antibodies for up to 4 to 6 months. So you wait for 4 months after your last dose and take the updated vaccine that gives protection against Omicron is the recommendation. Should we take it? I always leave it to people whether they want to take or not. If you ask me, I have not taken, because I trust on the fundamental principle of the immune system. The tenet of the immune system is memory. I trust my immune system. Whenever I get a COVID infection, which I did after 2 doses I got Omicron on 1st January 22. It was mild. Subsequently, I also got another bout sometime early this year, which the COVID test was negative, but I didn't bother to repeat it. Maybe I tested too early, but it was very mild. But it had all the COVID features of loss of smell and loss of taste, which we know does not occur in influenza. So, but my system handled the virus, and I'm 67 years old, 10 years younger than all of you. So 67 years old, but my immune system handled it. And I'm immunocompromised because I have a low-grade lymphoma, but still my immune system was able to handle it. So this is my personal stand. I am not saying that you should not take vaccine. This is something that you will have to take a call. And here I will be only a counselor, and I will not prescribe that you should or you should not do anything. I'll only give you the information. Those who are immunocompromised, the advice is clear that it's better that you take the vaccine. If you're immunocompromised for some reason or the other, that's what the CDC says. WHO also endorses the CDC. I stop here. I want to answer questions rather than bore you with more details. I hope, Dr. Badrinath, that's okay.
Thank you so much, Professor Ravi. You've been very clear, excellent talk. And I'm sure people would like to ask some questions now.